Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm the owner of 21 coffee shops across 3 states. But that Christmas dinner, my own family turned my proudest moment into my worst nightmare. Have you ever had your biggest achievement completely dismissed by the people who should celebrate you most? Because that's exactly what happened to me on what was supposed to be the most wonderful night of the year. Picture this: Christmas Eve, 2023. I'm sitting at my childhood dining table surrounded by the warm glow of twinkling lights and the smell of my mom's famous honey-glazed ham. My whole family's there: Mom, Dad, my older brother Jake, my younger brother Ryan, plus aunts, uncles, and cousins. Everyone's sharing their year's highlights, and the conversation naturally turns to work and achievements. I'd been waiting for this moment for months. After 8 years of grinding, saving every penny, taking risks that kept me awake at night, I finally had something incredible to share. So when Dad asked about my little coffee shop job, I took a deep breath and said the words I'd been rehearsing in my head. Actually, Dad, I don't just work at a coffee shop anymore. I own 21 of them. The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. You know that moment in movies where the record scratches and everything stops? That was my reality. Forks halfway to mouths, glasses frozen mid-sip. Even my 5-year-old cousin stopped coloring. Then my younger brother Ryan started laughing. Not a polite chuckle, but that ugly, mean laugh you hear in high school hallways. Within seconds, the entire table erupted. My dad was shaking his head with this disappointed smile. My mom was covering her face with her hands, and my brother Jake was literally wiping tears from his eyes. "Oh, Michelle," my mom said, her voice dripping with that condescending tone you use with a child who just claimed they saw Santa. "Honey, we're worried about your mental health. Maybe you should see someone about these fantasies." My dad leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms like he was about to deliver some tough love. "Michelle, stop living in Fantasyland. You work at one coffee shop as a barista. You don't own 21 anything. This is getting embarrassing." But it was Ryan who delivered the killing blow. This kid who I'd helped with homework, who I'd driven to soccer practice when Mom was too busy, who I'd lent money to more times than I could count. He pulled out his phone and started recording. "Guys, you have to hear this," he announced to his phone camera, grinning like he'd just discovered comedy gold. "My sister thinks she owns a coffee empire. Michelle, tell them again about your imaginary businesses." The humiliation was suffocating. Here I was, trying to share the biggest achievement of my life, and my own family was treating me like I'd just claimed I could fly. My Uncle Bob, who'd never been successful at anything, actually patted my shoulder and said, "It's okay to dream big, kiddo, but you gotta stay grounded in reality." My Aunt Susan chimed in with, "You know, there's no shame in being a barista. It's honest work. But these delusions—" She trailed off, shaking her head sadly. I tried to defend myself. I really did. "I can show you the business licenses," I said, my voice getting smaller with each word. "I have the property deeds, the tax documents, the employee payroll records." That just made them laugh harder. Jake, my older brother who I'd always looked up to, actually said, "Michelle's always been our family storyteller since we were kids. Remember when she convinced the neighbors she was related to the president?" "That was when I was 7, I protested, but nobody was listening anymore. Ryan kept filming, adding commentary like some twisted live stream. "And now she's trying to convince us she has documents. Mom, should we stage an intervention?" The worst part wasn't even the laughter. It was the looks, those pitying, concerned expressions that said they genuinely believed I was having some kind of mental breakdown. My own mother started Googling therapists on her phone right there at the dinner table. "I found someone who specializes in delusional disorders," she whispered to my dad, not even trying to hide it from me. "Dr. Peterson, he has excellent reviews." I felt so small, so invisible, even though I was sitting right there. These people had known me my whole life, had watched me work multiple jobs through high school and college, had seen me scrimp and save while they were buying new cars and taking vacations. But somehow, the idea that I could be successful was so impossible to them that they preferred to believe I was mentally ill. The evening only got worse. During dessert, Ryan posted his video to TikTok with the caption, "My sister's delusions are getting out of hand." Delusional sibling torture family drama. Chaka, someone get this girl help. Within hours, it had hundreds of views and comments from his friends making jokes about crazy Michelle. By the time I left that night, I wasn't invited to Boxing Day at my aunt's house anymore. "Maybe it's better if you take some time to get your head right," Mom suggested gently, like she was doing me a favor. The drive home was the longest 20 minutes of my life. I kept replaying every moment, every laugh, every pitying look. For the first time in years, I actually started to doubt myself. Was I crazy? Was I making this all up? Had I somehow constructed an elaborate fantasy world where I was successful? But then I got home to my downtown loft, the one I'd paid for in cash from my business profits. And reality hit me again. My kitchen counter was covered with vendor invoices for my shops. My laptop was open to a spreadsheet showing December's revenue numbers, $847,000 across all locations. On my coffee table sat a stack of Christmas cards from my employees thanking me for the holiday bonuses I'd given out just a week earlier. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't delusional. I was successful, and my own family couldn't handle it. The next few days were torture. I kept getting concerned text messages from relatives. Aunt Susan sent me links to mental health resources. My cousin Emma, who I'd always been close to, sent a long message about how it's okay to not be okay and how she'd always be there for me during this difficult time. The family group chat that I'd been part of for 3 years suddenly went quiet whenever I tried to contribute. Then I realized they'd created a new one without me. Ryan's TikTok kept getting more views, and he was loving the attention, posting follow-up videos about dealing with delusional family members. But the real knife in the back came 3 days later when Jake called me, his voice serious and careful like he was talking to someone on a ledge. "Michelle, we need to talk. The family's really worried about you. This coffee shop thing, it's getting out of hand. Mom found a really good facility that specializes in helping people who are struggling with reality. A facility. They wanted to commit me to a psychiatric hospital because they couldn't believe I was successful. That's when something shifted inside me. The hurt started turning into something harder, something more determined. These people didn't deserve to see my achievements. They didn't deserve to be part of my success story. If they wanted to believe I was delusional, fine. But they were about to learn just how real my delusions actually were. I started gathering documents that night. Business licenses for all 21 locations spread across Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. Property deeds showing I owned 17 of the buildings outright. Bank statements from the past 3 years showing a steady climb from breaking even to generating nearly $10 million in annual revenue. Employee records for the 127 people who worked for me, including their health insurance, retirement contributions, and profit-sharing bonuses. But as I was organizing everything, I found something I hadn't looked at in months. Tucked behind my filing cabinet was my grandfather's old leather-bound journal, the one he'd given me when I was 12 years old. Grandpa had been my inspiration for everything. While my parents saw entrepreneurship as risky and unrealistic, Grandpa had built a small construction company from nothing and sold it for enough to retire comfortably. He was the only one who ever believed in my dreams. I opened the journal to the first page, where his handwriting still looked as clear as the day he wrote it. "Success isn't about proving others wrong, Michelle. It's about proving yourself right. But sometimes, the people who should cheer loudest are the ones who will doubt you most." Flipping through the pages, I found the business plan we'd worked on together when I was in high school, a coffee shop chain focused on community gathering spaces, employee ownership programs, and locally sourced ingredients. Every major decision I'd made in building my business was right there in those pages, written in my teenage handwriting with Grandpa's notes in the margins. "Location is everything," he'd written next to my notes about the first shop. But people are everything else. "Never let family money corrupt your vision," was underlined twice next to a section about funding sources. And then, on the very last page he'd written in, a note I'd forgotten about. "The hardest part of success isn't making money, sweetheart. It's keeping family who never believed in you from destroying what you built." I stared at those words for a long time. Grandpa had died during my sophomore year of college, long before I'd opened my first shop. But somehow, he'd known this moment would come. That's when my phone started buzzing. Text after text, all from family members I hadn't heard from since Christmas. But these weren't concerned wellness checks. Dad: Michelle, can we talk? Ryan mentioned you might have some business opportunities to discuss. Jake: Hey sis, been thinking about what you said at dinner. Maybe we dismissed you too quickly. Want to grab coffee and chat about your ventures? Ryan: Yo Michelle, deleted that TikTok video. Family stuff should stay in the family, you know. BTW? Heard you might be looking for business partners? The shift in tone was so obvious it was almost funny. Almost. These were the same people who'd been ready to commit me to a mental hospital 3 days ago, and now they wanted to chat about business opportunities. But the text that really got to me was from my mom. Sweetheart, your father and I have been talking. Maybe we were too hasty in our reactions. We'd love to learn more about your coffee shops. Perhaps we could visit one this weekend. We might be interested in investing or helping out however we can. Investing. Helping out. These people had spent Christmas dinner laughing at me, questioning my sanity, and filming me for social media mockery, and now they wanted to invest in my success. That's when I knew exactly what I had to do. And it wasn't going to involve sharing anything with anyone who'd treated me like I was delusional for having dreams bigger than they could imagine. I closed Grandpa's journal and reached for my phone to call the one person who'd believed in me from the very beginning, my lawyer. Sarah Chen picked up on the second ring. Michelle, how was Christmas? Did you finally tell your family about the empire you've built? Sarah had been my business attorney since day one. She was the one who'd helped me navigate the maze of business licenses, who'd reviewed every property purchase, who'd structured my employee profit-sharing program. More importantly, she was one of the few people who'd witnessed my journey from broke barista to business owner. Sarah, I need your help with something different this time, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. My family thinks I'm delusional. They want to commit me to a psychiatric facility because they can't believe I own 21 coffee shops. The silence on the other end was brief but telling. Are you serious? Michelle, I've literally been handling your legal affairs for 6 years. I've seen every contract, every deed, every incorporation document. You're one of the most grounded entrepreneurs I know. I know that, and you know that, but my family? I told her everything. The Christmas dinner humiliation, Ryan's TikTok video, the concerned family messages, and now the sudden shift to wanting business discussions and investment opportunities. Sarah's response was immediate and fierce. Oh, hell no, we're documenting everything. Start with screenshots of all those messages, especially the ones where they're questioning your mental health. And Michelle, don't meet with any of them alone. The next morning, I drove to Sarah's downtown office with a box full of documents. Not just any documents, the complete financial and legal history of my business empire. Sarah's assistant, Kevin, helped me spread everything across the conference room table. Business license for Grounds and Grace Coffee Co. My first shop opened 4 years ago in a struggling neighborhood in Columbus. The monthly revenue had grown from $12,000 in year 1 to $85,000 now. Property deed for the building that housed my flagship location, purchased outright 2 years ago for $340,000, now worth $520,000 according to the latest appraisal. Incorporation documents for G&G Holdings LLC, the parent company that owned all 21 locations, showing me as 100% owner with no partners, no investors, no family involvement. Bank statements showing the company's current assets, $2.3 million in checking, $4.7 million in high-yield savings, $1.8 million in equipment and inventory, plus the property values totaling another $6.2 million. Employee payroll records for 127 people across 3 states. Not just minimum wage baristas, but shift supervisors earning $18 an hour, assistant managers at $55,000 annually, and regional managers pulling in 6 figures. Tax returns showing gross revenue of $9.8 million last year, with net profits of $1.9 million after all expenses, employee benefits, and reinvestment into new locations. Sarah reviewed everything methodically, making notes and taking photos for our files. Michelle, this is extraordinary. You've built something that most people only dream of. The fact that your family can't see it. She shook her head. Actually, let me call Robert Martinez. He's been doing your taxes for 3 years. I want him here for this. Robert arrived within an hour, carrying his own stack of files. As my CPA, he knew every financial detail of my business better than I did. He'd been the one to help me structure the employee profit-sharing program, to set up the retirement benefits, to plan for the tax implications of rapid expansion. Michelle, Robert said, settling into a chair across from me, your family thinks you're making this up. I've seen Fortune 500 companies with less organized financial structures than yours. Last quarter alone, you distributed $127,000 in profit-sharing bonuses to your employees. You've got people working for you who are buying houses, sending kids to college, building retirement funds because of the opportunities you've created. Sarah was taking notes furiously. Robert, I need you to prepare a comprehensive financial summary. Everything: gross revenue, net profits, asset valuations, employee benefits, tax payments to federal and state governments. Make it official, notarized, the works. Already on it, Robert replied, pulling out his laptop. But Michelle, can I ask why you need this? Are you planning to sell? Because I've got to tell you, with your growth trajectory and profit margins, you could probably get $15 to $20 million if you wanted to exit. I'm not selling, I said firmly. I'm protecting what I've built. While Robert worked on the financial summary, Sarah started making phone calls. First, to the local business journal that had featured me as Young Entrepreneur of the Year 6 months earlier. Then, to the Small Business Administration, where I'd been invited to speak at 3 conferences about sustainable growth and employee-focused business models. Finally, to the mayor's office. I'd been part of an economic development committee that had helped revitalize downtown Columbus. Michelle, Sarah said after hanging up with the mayor's chief of staff, I'm building a credibility file. Letters of recommendation, speaking engagements, community involvement, media coverage. If your family wants to question your success, they're going to have to question a lot of other people too. That afternoon, I got a call from my dad. His tone was different, less concerned, more calculating. Michelle, honey, Ryan and I were hoping we could come by this weekend. We've been thinking about what you said at Christmas, and we owe you an apology. We reacted poorly. Maybe we could visit one of your coffee shops? See what you've built? The pause before coffee shops told me everything I needed to know. They still didn't fully believe it, but something had made them curious enough to investigate. Dad, what changed your mind? Another pause. Well, Ryan did some research online, found some articles about you. We had no idea you'd been this involved in the business community. Research. They'd hired someone to look into me. I was sure of it. I'm pretty busy this weekend, I said carefully. Maybe we can talk next week. Michelle, please. Your mother and I, we might have been too quick to judge. If there are opportunities for family to be involved in your business ventures, we'd like to discuss them. There it was. Family involvement, investment opportunities. They'd gone from questioning my sanity to wanting a piece of what I'd built in less than a week. After I hung up, Sarah looked at me seriously. Michelle, I think your family hired a private investigator. The timing of this attitude shift is too convenient. They found out you're telling the truth, and now they want in. She was right. That evening, my suspicions were confirmed when Ryan called. Michelle, look, I'm sorry about the TikTok thing. Family drama shouldn't be public. I deleted it. Ryan, you had 100,000 views on that video. You made me look insane to your entire generation. I know, but listen, I've been thinking about business opportunities lately. I'm graduating in May, and I was wondering, do you need any help with your coffee shops? Maybe I could manage one, or we could open a new location together. The audacity was breathtaking. This kid who'd filmed me for mockery a week ago now wanted to manage one of my shops. Ryan, what made you suddenly interested in coffee? Well, I did some research, and it turns out you're actually successful. Dad and I found some articles and stuff. We had no idea. Research, articles, and stuff, and they definitely hired someone to investigate me. That night, Sarah called with more information. Michelle, I have a contact at a private investigation firm. He says a concerned family member hired them last Monday to look into your claims about business ownership. They submitted a full report 3 days ago detailing your assets, properties, and financial standing. So that was it. My family had been so convinced I was delusional that they'd paid someone to prove it. Instead, they'd gotten a professional confirmation that I was everything I'd claimed to be and more. The next few days brought a parade of family members suddenly interested in reconnecting. Jake called to apologize for not taking me seriously and wondered if I needed help with business development. My mom sent flowers with a note about being so proud of my successful daughter. Uncle Bob, who'd condescendingly patted my shoulder at Christmas, left a voicemail about investment opportunities for family members. But the breaking point came Friday evening. Dad and Ryan showed up at my apartment unannounced. "Michelle, we need to talk," Dad said, pushing past me when I opened the door. "This is family business now." Ryan followed him in, looking around my loft with obvious surprise. The downtown penthouse apartment, the high-end furniture, the original artwork on the walls, none of it fit their image of their delusional family member. "Nice place," Ryan said, trying to sound casual. "Must be expensive." "It is," I replied. "I bought it with cash from my coffee shop profits." Dad cleared his throat, settling onto my couch like he owned it. "Michelle, we owe you an apology. We should have listened at Christmas. But now that we understand the scope of your success, we think it's time to discuss family involvement." "Family involvement in what?" "Your business, obviously. 21 locations is impressive, but with the right family support, you could expand even further. Ryan here is studying business, and I have 40 years of management experience. We could help you take this to the next level." I stared at them both. "You want to help me now?" "Of course," Dad continued. "Families should stick together. We could bring some structure to your operations, maybe help with financing for expansion. In exchange, we'd naturally expect some ownership stake, some profit-sharing arrangement." "Naturally?" Ryan leaned forward eagerly. "I was thinking I could start as a manager at one of the locations, learn the business from the ground up. Then maybe we could open new shops together, split the ownership based on contribution." They had it all figured out. The family members who'd mocked me, filmed me, questioned my sanity, and tried to have me committed were now sitting in my apartment discussing how to divide up my business empire. "So, let me understand this," I said slowly. "A week ago, you wanted to put me in a psychiatric facility because you thought I was delusional. Now, you want to be my business partners." Dad had the grace to look uncomfortable. "We made mistakes, Michelle, but that's in the past. What matters now is moving forward as a family." "What changed your minds?" Ryan and Dad exchanged glances. "We did some research," Ryan said finally. "Found out you weren't exaggerating." "Research. Online articles, public records, that sort of thing," Dad added quickly. I walked to my kitchen counter and picked up my phone. "Sarah, they're here, both of them, in my apartment, talking about ownership stakes and profit sharing." Dad's face went pale. "Michelle, who are you calling?" "My lawyer. The one who's been handling my business affairs for 6 years. The one who helped me structure the employee profit-sharing program that's made my workers some of the highest-paid coffee shop employees in 3 states. The one who's been documenting every message you've sent me this week." I put the phone on speaker so they could hear Sarah's voice clearly. "Michelle, are you safe? Do you want me to come over?" "I'm fine, Sarah. But I think Dad and Ryan would like to know what we've been working on this week." Sarah's voice was crisp and professional. "Certainly. We've prepared a comprehensive legal response to the family harassment and defamation campaign, including documentation of the TikTok video that portrayed Michelle as mentally unstable, the attempted psychiatric intervention, and the subsequent investigation into her assets without consent." Dad stood up abruptly. "Ooh, now wait just a minute. We've also prepared cease and desist orders regarding any further social media content, any claims about Michelle's mental health, and any attempts to insert family members into her business operations without her explicit written consent." Ryan was looking increasingly panicked. "Michelle, we don't need lawyers involved. This is family stuff." Sarah continued as if he hadn't spoken. The documentation clearly shows a pattern of emotional abuse, followed by attempted financial exploitation. We're prepared to file a formal complaint if necessary. I looked at my father and brother. Really looked at them. Dad, who'd spent my entire childhood telling me to be realistic about my dreams. Ryan, who'd humiliated me for internet clout. Both of them now sitting in the home I'd bought with money I'd earned, building something they'd insisted was impossible. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice steady and calm. "You're going to leave. Tonight. Right now. You're going to stop calling about business opportunities. You're going to stop suggesting family involvement in my company, and you're going to understand that my success doesn't entitle you to anything." Dad's face was red now. "Michelle, you're being unreasonable. We're family. We made mistakes, but we're trying to make things right. By asking for ownership stakes in my business, we could contribute." "With what?" I interrupted. "Dad, I know about the foreclosure proceedings on your house. I know Ryan has $15,000 in gambling debts. I know you hired a PI because you couldn't believe your daughter might actually be successful. What exactly would you contribute to my business besides the same skepticism and lack of support you've always given me?" The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Ryan spoke up, his voice small. "We just thought family should help family." "Family should," I agreed. "Which is why I've been sending Mom money for her medical bills for 2 years. Which is why I paid for your car repairs last spring, Ryan. Which is why I've never asked to be paid back for any of the loans I've given you both. But wanting to help family and wanting to own part of what I built are very different things." Sarah's voice came through the phone speaker again. "Michelle, I have the legal documents ready whenever you want to proceed." Dad looked between me and the phone, finally understanding that this wasn't going to go the way he'd planned. "What kind of legal documents?" "The kind that establish very clear boundaries," I replied. "About defamation, about business interference, about respecting the success I built without any help from family members who spent Christmas dinner laughing at my dreams." They left without another word. After the door closed behind them, I sat on my couch and opened Grandpa's journal again. There, on a page I hadn't noticed before, was another note in his careful handwriting. "Michelle, if you're reading this after I'm gone, it means you've probably achieved something remarkable. It also probably means that some people in our family have tried to take credit for your work or insert themselves into your success. Remember, the people who believe in you don't need proof, and the people who demand proof don't deserve to benefit from what you've built." Below that, in my own teenage handwriting, was a quote I'd copied from somewhere. "The best revenge is massive success lived on your own terms." I'd built something beautiful. 21 coffee shops that weren't just businesses, but community gathering places. Employment for 127 people who earned living wages, health insurance, retirement benefits, and profit-sharing bonuses. Recognition from business organizations, media outlets, and government agencies. Financial independence that let me help my mom without anyone knowing, support local charities, and build something lasting. My family's inability to believe in me hadn't stopped me from succeeding. Their attempt to exploit my success wouldn't be allowed to diminish what I'd accomplished. The next morning, I did something I'd been planning for months. I called an all-hands meeting for every employee across all 21 locations. We did it via video conference, with regional managers gathering their teams at each shop. "I wanted you all to hear this directly from me," I began, looking at the faces of people who'd helped build this company with me. "We're implementing a new profit-sharing increase, effective immediately. We're also establishing an employee education fund for anyone who wants to pursue business courses, culinary training, or management certification." Maria, who'd been with me since the second location opened, raised her hand. "Michelle, this is incredible. But can I ask what brought this on?" I smiled, thinking about Grandpa's journal, about Sarah's legal documents, about my family's sudden interest in business opportunities. I've been reminded lately about the importance of sharing success with the people who actually helped create it. You've all been part of building something special. It's time to make sure you benefit from what we've accomplished together. After the meeting, I sat in my first coffee shop, the one in the struggling Columbus neighborhood that was now thriving. The morning rush was in full swing, with regular customers chatting with baristas who knew their names and orders by heart. This was what success looked like. Not the money, not the recognition, but the community we'd built and the lives we'd improved. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Michelle, your father told me about your conversation last night. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Maybe we could have lunch soon. Just the two of us. No business talk, just mother and daughter." I stared at the message for a long time. Some relationships could be repaired with clear boundaries and honest conversations. Others couldn't. But I was done proving myself to people who'd rather believe I was crazy than successful. I had a business empire to run, employees to support, and communities to serve. The people who doubted me could either respect what I'd built or watch from the sidelines. Either way, my success would continue to be exactly what Grandpa had predicted: massive and lived entirely on my own terms,